Hey everybody, it's Ken. So I'm here with Danille, and Danille owns several rentals, and now they're not exactly multifamily housing, but they're definitely rentals. And I thought it might be a good opportunity to sit down with her because a lot of her questions are the same that are coming in on Instagram, on Facebook, on email, and questions, conversations I've been in, and also things I've been through. So I figured might as well put it into a video for you guys because hopefully some of these questions that she has are similar to what you might have. And by the way, keep those questions coming because we want to deliver to you exactly what it is that you want and need. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Ken.
So let's talk about, first of all, why don't you talk about your rentals and what they are and how you got them and,
Yeah, I basically purchased my first rental as a condo that I lived in. And then I decided I wanted to purchase a home. And so I started to rent out my condo. And then I decided I wanted to live somewhere else and get another place. So then now I rent out my home and my condo.
Okay, so you've got two rentals basically, and obviously you've got tenants, and they've been moving in and moving out, and you've been dealing with the credit screening and the tenant issues and all those kinds of things, right?
Yeah, it's been a great experience so far.
A true investor, true landlord, right? And I would imagine you've done pretty well.
Yeah, it's been great.
So financially, has it been good?
Yeah, it's been really good financially, and I've really enjoyed the whole process.
Oh, good. All right. So what are some of your concerns?
Well, it's went really smoothly the past 5 years. I always just had tenants and they paid rent. I screened them correctly, and then
now no
I've
tenants.
kind of been collecting money, and it's been good.
Yeah.
But and because I screened them correctly, I've not had any payment issues or anything like that. In speaking with my tenants, some of them have lost their jobs or their hours have been cut back. And, that has me sitting here thinking, oh my goodness, what do I do?
Good. Well, a couple things. First thing is congratulations on being in communication with your tenants. That to me is one of the biggest things that we can do right now because, you're obviously probably concerned about paying the bank or paying a loan, and they're concerned about a paycheck. And so, the worst thing that we can do is not communicate. So that's the first thing. The second thing that you mentioned in there, just really casually, and I think is very, very important, is that you feel like you've picked very good tenants.
Yes.
So I think that has a lot to do with the stability or the potential stability with what we're about to talk to about next. And that is, these are probably good, hardworking people.
Yeah, they're great. And I know they want to pay me rent.
Yeah.
But they just, right now, everything's frozen and they're afraid.
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, and who knows what else they have going on. Mm-hmm. And you. I don't actually know exactly all the stuff that you've got going on. I'm sure you have expenses and HOA fees and property taxes and insurance and all those kinds of things that you guys all have. So I think the first thing is congratulations on having a good renter. And if you guys have good renters, you need to work with them right now. You need to sit down and talk to them and find out, because what are they going to do?
Right.
I mean, really, I'm sure, especially like we have property in Texas and Dallas County is on lockdown. Okay. Which basically means that if somebody's moving, they're going to have, it's going to be a challenge. They're not going to be able to have moving companies and, all these different, it's not a necessity, right? The business. So, having a good tenant right now, even if they're having some financial hardships, I think is a great thing to have because they're going to make things work for you, but they want you to be able to work with them.
Yeah. And I think for me and a lot of people like me, it's more, have you ever seen something like this before? I mean, I feel like I've never seen a drop in the market like this.
Yeah. Well, so I think you got to go back to, this is part of being a landlord. So we have 10,000 tenants. And so there's always people that have life interruption issues. This just happens to be one that everyone's going through at the same time. But everyone has job issues. Everyone has medical issues. Not everyone, but a lot of people have, medical issues. Everyone has downsizing issues. Everyone has all kinds of things that happen. And so this is very normal for our company. Now, not at this magnitude. We don't know in 1 week who's going to pay rent in April, who can. That's based on somebody's individual circumstances. And it might be that same with you. So both of your tenants, you have two, might have the cash reserves for 1 year, 1 month. You don't know. Might not have any.
Right, yeah.
So everyone's a little bit different. So this is not unique for us. This is something that we deal with every month on a number of properties. But I've been through this in 2008 when, we had that big fallout. And what happened during that time, it's very different. That everybody was losing their houses. And so they were actually moving into rentals. So in a weird way, rentals benefited. And in another instance, it was a little bit different. But in today's situation, people don't have money.
Right.
So it's a little bit different scenario.
Okay. How do you see that playing out in the long run?
Well, it depends on the tenant, So if there's if they have financial resources or cash, they're going to be fine. If they have, let's say they're husband and wife and they both marry, that actually helps a little bit than if they're single, for example. But not that singles being bad. It's just that two incomes versus one. But having that financial capability to be able to cover rent is probably at the top of their list, even as up there with food. Nobody wants to be kicked out. No landlord wants to kick anyone out. And of course, Trump just, put out a no eviction, which I think is actually good because it would be horrible to do that for people.
Yeah, it would be, I would never want to do that for my tenants because they've been so good to me to this point. And then also I would think it would be hard to even rent somewhere right now because people are looking for stability, right?
Well, right. I think about that. Think about what if your tenant can't pay rent? What if they're really, really good people and, they're in an industry that's not doing well and they got laid off? They don't have many options, and so they want to do what they want to do. They might skip out, they might move in with friends, they might move in with family. Who knows? They might move to something smaller that's less rent. They might move to a different state. You just never know, right? So you just have to weather all of it and know that you might have a vacancy. And this is the opposite of what you were just describing for the last 5 years, right? It's just, people that are new in the business like yourself, honestly, 5 years is relatively new, hasn't been through a correction. I've been through it. It's normal. We have recessions. And we have corrections and people have life experience issues and we just have to work with them. And that's all we can do.
And what can I do, if I owe my bank mortgages and I can't make the mortgage if they can't make the rent? What's a good strategy around that?
So this is showing up right now on the retail side. I have lots of friends that own retail strip shopping centers and, small buildings that have, even commercial office. And the tenants are actually emailing them, says, I need, my business is shut. I can't pay you, like a nail salon or a barber shop or, anything like a Subway, sandwich or whatever it is, flower shop. They don't have people coming in and buying things, so they can't pay. So there's a lot of communication right now to the landlord. So now the landlord takes that information and then has to have a communication with the bank. And, every bank is going to be different. And it's hard to say what could potentially happen here. But this is why I keep telling everybody, you need to have reserves and you need to have cash. Cash is king right now. And, even if your tenant is living in your unit and they can't pay you rent, if you can, you got to try to pay the mortgage, and if you can't, then you need to communicate to the bank, and the bank might work with you or they might not. It just depends on the bank.
But you think communication is key.
I do.
You contact them before they contact you.
Always. Yeah. You got to let these people, the banks are not in the business of owning real estate. They don't want it. And, they're in the business of lending on it. And, and obviously, in some cases, banks are going to go, right to the letter of the law and say, you owe me, and we're going to start the default process. And others, I would imagine they're going to start working with you. I also think we're going to start to see some monetary policy and some liquidity, from the Federal Reserve on this issue. I do. You can't just have all these defaulting landlords, all these defaulting commercial loans, all these defaulting residential loans without a massive, massive impact, on the system. So we just haven't seen them yet. I think Trump was trying to come out with something that gave people $1,000, I think it was, and that they can use however they want. I think a lot of people would be using that on rent, probably food. So, and who knows, maybe there'll be more of those.
Okay. And I wanted to, talk about it. I know that we all have been waiting for that real estate correction. And, I would talk to people and they'd say, no, that's never going to happen. It's just going to keep going up and up and up. And do you think that this is going to potentially create opportunity for real estate in the long run?
Yeah, I do. I've seen this before. It's a little different this time, and it usually is every time. It's very different every single time, and it's bizarre to me, but nobody ever sees it coming, and here we are. The reality is that we could be facing 20-30% unemployment. Mm-hmm. That's a fact, right? And so those folks are gone from the real estate scene. They're not renting, probably, at least like they were. They're not spending money like they were. They're not buying houses like they were. They're not refinancing like they were. They're not investing like they were. And so, and in addition to those that are still left standing, probably are working for companies that are not as profitable as they were. They're not getting increases like they were. So everybody's impacted. And so that lack of demand is going to hurt the industry. And, and so lack of job growth hurts, lack of population growth hurts, but cheap money will help. Right now things are cheap. So if you've got cash, you're in a very good position. Very good position, because my experience is going to be that there'll be people who are going to do what they have to do to survive. They're going to move in with friends and family. They're going to consolidate. They're going to do whatever they have to do to survive. And most good people are not going to take advantage of this, no eviction issue, or take advantage of the landlord. They're going to realize, and contractually, they're still owe the landlord. So they get that. But now we're going to start to see what's called force majeure issues within these contracts, with the government basically shutting down a business. We're going to start to see people dig into these actual agreements a lot more, right? And you're going to start to say, is this covered by insurance? Is it not covered by insurance? And so you're going to start to see all these legal issues pop up as a result of this government shutdown, and on a number of levels. And what's going to happen is these people are going to pull out all their agreements. And then it's going to be a fight between the tenant and the landlord and the bank. And it's going to be very, very interesting.
And I want to touch on one more thing. When I had my properties, I was very much leaning towards Airbnb. And I remember you never being for Airbnb, and you kind of liked slow and steady wins the race, with long-term tenants. And I decided to go the long-term tenant route, and I couldn't be more happier currently because I have friends that do Airbnb. So do you have anything you want to comment on that?
Well, to me, Airbnb is in the same category as a hotel. It's not a hotel, of course, but and in good times, I mean, I've used a ton of Airbnbs. You can find some great spots. And sometimes I don't like staying in hotels. But at the end of the day, you're renting to somebody short term, period. And that's discretionary. And that requires travel, via car or via plane. And it doesn't require a shutdown. So, when you start to add all those things up, there's going to be a financial impact for people. Like we live in Arizona. So in Scottsdale, right now we're supposed to be having spring training, for an example. And, where all the baseball teams are here and people are flying in and they get Airbnbs, they get condos, they get apartments, they get houses. And that's players, coaches, fans, all that gone. Right? Okay. So somebody owns those places. For me, I would rather have, somebody that works at a hospital, and is paying me rent every single month. You know what I mean? And so, and and the numbers, what happens is, people start to fall in love with the profit margins. They start to say, hey, we can rent this for $3,000 or $4,000 a month on an Airbnb, with 3 or 4 tenants in one particular month. Well, that might be true. People are renting in Arizona in the summer at those numbers, and they're not calculating vacancy. They're not calculating turnover. They're not calculating any of the maintenance issues that you might have, the utilities are turning on and off, the disruption in the place. There's all these other things that, it's a full business. And so, I see a massive issue around VRBO and Airbnb. And Airbnb was supposed to go public, and I'm sure that's going to get delayed. So there's all these things that are happening with those individual. I'm in love with Airbnb. I will tell you, I think it's a great thing to be able to combat the hotels, et cetera, et cetera. But if you're a small investor and you own some place and you're relying on that, you're done. You have a mortgage and you have no tenant, right?
Right. Yeah. So, I'm really happy, with the decision I made to do the long-term tenants. And this has been really helpful. I feel like I have a better grasp on what's going on and kind of what I should be expecting.
Yeah, just communicate. That's the best thing you guys can do. Put stuff in writing, put stuff in emails. We're having conversations with our lenders. We're having conversations with our tenants. We're making concessions for people. We're trying to keep them in our homes, in their homes, and their kids in their school districts, and all the things that happen, all the things that result, in this shutdown. The best thing you could do is continue to work with people. I think generally people are very good.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
They just, and so just treat them with respect, have some empathy, have some compassion as to what they're going through, and then communicate with them the same thing that you're going through. You say, listen, I understand you can't pay rent. I can't pay my mortgage if you can't pay my rent. And just be honest, because that's the truth. So everybody, thank you. Danille, thanks. I appreciate it. Thanks again for your questions. We're going to try to do as many of these videos as we can on a short-term basis. We're going to try to release 2 a week. So please keep your questions coming. We are still filming. We are still putting content out there. As each week goes by, things are going to change a little bit more, and we'll be very sure to be on point and on time with great information for you. So thanks again.